Okay, everybody. Happy Friday. Welcome to the inaugural Marks 10 at 10. And I really appreciate this time. There's a lot of things going on in the market, and there's so much data that comes out. It's coming at us from all different angles. And I think it's just important for us to be able to parse through and find out and look at what is actually important, what's actually true, and what's actually just being sensationalized. And I think that's the reason why I felt compelled to start doing these updates. So my goal is to update you guys in my sphere, realtors all across the country, clients, to know exactly what's going on in this market. So you can feel confident when you go out looking for a home, or you can feel confident when you're taking your clients out or you're going to a listing appointment. So let's dive right in. We're going to be doing these every Friday at 10 o'clock for 10 minutes. So running a little bit behind today, so we may go over a minute or so, but let's jump right in. So housing still standing right now. You remember the old song, I'm Still Standing? And that's really what's going on despite the negative media spin. So pending home sales, which is a big figure, showed sales up 0.8% when it was supposed to be down 0.3%. So it's supposed to be down 0.3. It's actually up 0.8. Now, this is huge. Now, why is that such a big change? Why is that difference such a big deal? Well, it's because during that same time span, interest rates went up over a percentage point. So for this to happen when rates are going up, guys, is a huge positive sign. And this is also the third consecutive month that we've had increases month over month for housing and pending home sales. So we're about to head into spring season. So for naysayers out there that have been saying, and certainly the media, and the ringleader, of course, is Diana Olick for CNBC, and to watch her, you would literally think that we're on like a different planet. You really want to make sure that who you're listening to understand this information, because you need to be the guiding light to help people make the right decisions right now. Now, there's actually more good housing news showing some underlying strength with applications last week. We saw purchase applications increase 2% week over week. They're still down 35% year over year. Refinances also increased up 5% week over week, but they're still down 61%. No surprise there. Year over year interest rates dropped slightly to 6.45%. That's about 1 2/3% higher this time year over year. What else is we got here? And we still got a ways to go, obviously, to get back to more of a normal level. And if you guys don't know this, but behaviorally around the mid fives range, and even as we've touched down, as you've noticed, into the high fives in recent weeks, that's where activity has really picked up. That's where we see you can literally, it's not almost, you can look at rates tick up, applications go down. Rates tick down, applications go up. It's been like this week over week, and we're likely to see this sort of volatility operating within a range over the next several months. So let's take a look at what else we've got here. PCE, personal consumption expenditures. The report came in okay. It showed that inflation rose 0.3%, which is a little bit higher than the estimates. But let's go back to, sorry. We'll come back to that. In reality, let's look at what Diana Olick was saying. Okay, so what she forgot to mention, if you talk about Diana Olick, here's a person who has literally put a negative spin on every report, and for the last several years, she's been wrong so many times, you start to wonder is if she's just trying to really cover herself. So if you look at just 2 days ago, she did her best to put a negative spin on the pending home sales report, where she said words like eked out a small gain, doing her best, to try to dismiss the numbers. And this is the same person that made a huge deal out of the 0.2% decrease in the median home sale price earlier this year, but failed to mention it was not really appreciation. It was a skew due to the mix of sales. So she also forgot to mention it was the third month of increases in a row, which is much better than the expectations, we're looking for that 0.3% decline. So the signed contracts in February, when rates moved 1% higher, this is a huge deal. So Diana Olick also explained that this is the reason we saw a much smaller gain, using it as a point of weakness, though. So guys, what we're seeing right now is we're seeing a lot of people win in this market. And the reason why we're seeing people win is because they're not necessarily looking at what the baseline rates are and just acting on those. Because if that's what we're out there trying to explain to people what's available, and they're just going to stay on the sidelines. What we're seeing though is that people are actually getting sales concessions from sellers. Now, obviously real estate's hyper local, but we're seeing this in our market here in Nashville, and we're seeing it in a lot of other markets that I work in. I work on the Panhandle a lot, and I've got clients in Texas, California, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, and I'm getting reports back from agents that lots of seller concessions with builders and with sellers, and we're using those concessions to go in get out of the gate and ask for a concession from the builder or the seller, and then getting a rate buy down. So instead of somebody getting a 6.5% rate, they're getting something that's more like 5.5%, or maybe they're buying it down with a 10-year ARM, which has also been a really good product in this environment. And that's something that we've had a lot of people take advantage of. More than half of our conventional buyers have been taking advantage of this 10-year ARM. So what does that look like? Well, it's fixed for 10 years. It's an ARM. It means it can adjust later, but for the fixed period, it's the longest ARM that's actually out there. So when you're talking about an ARM, then, you get into a situation where if you've got enough time, you don't know if you're even going to be living there in 10 years. A lot of people are taking advantage of that. So when you get an ARM, it's already starting out at a lower rate. So instead of lowering the price right now and asking for a price reduction, we're really coaching our agents and our clients to move towards a sales concession. So that sales concession, $10,000. Let's just go over that real quick. So a $10,000 difference in sales in price is going to equate to about a $50 to $60, on about a 6.5% rate, about a $59 difference in payment, depending on the loan. So when you think about that, versus doing a sales concession where the seller gives $10,000 straight to the buyer's bottom line, now all of a sudden, Mr. and Miss Buyer can bring $10,000 less to the table. That's something they can use for home improvements. They can use for doing repairs. They can beef up their emergency fund, whatever it may be, but that's going to have a lot bigger impact. And so right now, when we know that the market is softened, it's better to have the seller pay for concessions rather than asking for them to reduce the purchase price. Now, I'm not saying don't ask for a price reduction, but maybe temper the price reduction a little bit to account for maybe still doing 2 to 3% and asking for seller concessions, so the buyer can use that 2 to 3% to add to implement into their savings, and now they come to the table with $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 less. So if you guys have questions, need to get with me at all or my team, we'll be working today and through the weekend. And I appreciate you chiming in and listening this time. And we'll see you next week. See ya.